Missy one who blasters a waji capda. Blasters in ye cap maunhuda. One national team, Yadi trophy ni diagro, e diasa, tero bara, that would do chiselo, solo
So after Blasters' defeat to Uruguay in the World Cup, Coach Otto Addo has decided to resign from the Blasters coaching job, and Saddick Adams of Angel TV has come out to drop deep secrets about Coach Otto Addo's resignation from the Blasters. Alright, so without much ado, let's get into what Saddick Adam had to say about this Coach Otto Addo and Blasters brouhaha.
We are back to the same issues. Black Stars of Ghana at a major tournament and coming back empty-handed, of course. This was a team we least gave any chance. But the very breaking news is that the head coach of the team, Otto Addo, has decided to step down from his role as the Black Stars coach. Of course, this was expected for many fans of the team, especially for sports journalists who are closer to the team. This was expected, and there are very reasons behind this decision by Otto Addo. One, we have to explain, sir, Coach Otto Addo, after the sacking of Milovan Rajevac, I was in Cameroon for the AFCON, and after the disastrous loss to Comoros that night, the GFA were hell-bent on sacking Milovan Rajevac. So they started looking for coaches. They started looking for who to take over the realms of the Black Stars. And the mantle fell on Otto Addo. Let's also emphasize, sir, the government of Ghana had already gotten in touch. The government of Ghana, as in people closer to government, had already gotten in touch with Chris Hilton, who has his roots back in Ghana here, the former Brighton coach and Newcastle United coach. Onim say any roots from Ghana, Accra. So people who know him in London and who are closer to government, particularly his friend Gabi Asare-Otredako, at this point we can mention, say they had tried to bring him to the Black Stars, but the Ghana Football Association president Kurt Okreku was very much interested in hiring Otto Addo. So Kurt Okreku was for Otto Addo. Then people around government machinery were interested in hiring Chris Hilton. So at a point, I think early on in March, Kurt Okreku and then Bernard Lepe, the technical director of the Ghana Football Association, Kurt Okreku's special advisor or chief of staff was there, and then Tony Bafo. So let's remind ourselves, Otto Addo in the first place was not interested in coaching the Black Stars. Otto Addo in the first place was not interested. He was not enthused about this idea of coaching the Black Stars. So this is something that we need to establish, that he was spoken to, and the people who were involved in this conversation are people who are top ex-footballers. There is a name that I don't want to mention because Ebekwa could raise so many questions as to why the person was involved. But there were a lot of ex-footballers, some of them who have played in Germany, who were involved in the process of trying to convince Otto Addo to come to coach the Black Stars after Milovan Rajevac had left. So one, the person who was very key in this was Tony Bafo. You know, Otto Addo sees Tony Bafo as his godfather, respects him so much. Those of you who were around the Black Stars in 2006 during our World Cup campaign, Otto Addo sees Tony Bafo as a torch bearer, somebody who paved the way for him to come to the Black Stars. So, but for Tony Bafo, Otto Addo would not have accepted the job of coaching the Black Stars. So he was convinced and spoken to. Kurt Okreku had to spend days in Germany before Otto Addo agreed, said he would come and coach the Black Stars for the World Cup qualifiers. And we had 2 games to go for the World Cup because we had already qualified for the playoffs at Ecosia, Nigeria. So this is the point that they finally convinced him that he should come and take the team for the 2 matches and see what happens. Then there needed to be a compromise because government had already been interested in hiring. Government is the he who they say the person in charge of it is the person who decides where it goes. So Otto Addo coming to the Black Stars, then the GFA have their man. Government also wants their man to be there, Chris Hilton. So this was where they needed to be a compromise. The government of Ghana said, okay, we are paying. If you still insist that you need Otto Addo, who we think is still a young coach who can develop very well and come, and you still want him there, fine. But we need to keep Chris Hilton as well to be able to balance the team. So Otto Addo came in. The GFA spoke to George Boateng, former Dutch international, Masao Didi Dramani, and of course, there is Chris Hilton there. So these were the men supposed to help Otto Addo, including Richard Kenson and others. So Chris Hilton became the technical advisor of the team. Meanwhile, there was a technical director, and then the head coach of the team is Otto Addo. That was quite surprising because in the hierarchy of things, you think that Chris Hilton is the top man. He's the man with the experience and the competence, top level football. So everybody expected that he would have been the head coach and then Otto Addo becomes the assistant coach. But that was not to be it. So Otto Addo leads the team against Nigeria, and we have a very famous qualification story from Kumasi to Abuja, and we come future for him. They have a blueprint. They trust him so much. He's been Dortmund and Ghana was quite easier for Otto Addo. If not for the World Cup qualification and the fact that Otto Addo had qualified, after those 2 games against Nigeria, Otto Addo was going to be gone. This is a fact. So when I was in Abuja, there were stories that I heard, even after we qualified ahead of Nigeria, the authorities had to hurriedly sit again and talk to Otto Addo. Say, this time you have qualified. Charlie, you've led us to qualify. What do we do? Are you still going back to Dortmund, or you lead us to the World Cup? Then the decision became easier, even for Dortmund, who were not going to allow him to stay with the Black Stars. So all along, the head coach of our national team has never stayed permanently as the Black Stars coach in Ghana. And all of you are aware, if you are the head coach of a national team, your area of location or your permanent base should be in the country that you are coaching. But Otto Addo has never stayed in Ghana as the Black Stars head coach. So for a long time, Ghana has been compromising for Otto Addo because for him, he's not the one chasing the job. He did not write any application or submit a CV for the Black Stars job. Otto Addo understands that his future is somewhere. Ghana came in convincing him. Then he gave us his terms that 1, I will continue to work with Dortmund while I keep on managing the Black Stars as the head coach. And 2, even as the head coach of the Black Stars, I will not have a permanent contract. So after the Nigeria win or qualification, Otto Addo went back to Dortmund. For 2 weeks, he was trying to convince the Dortmund authorities and officials whether they will allow him to stay or not. This is where the thing got easier for Dortmund. You are among the top 4 coaches here. We respect your job. Then, you have a World Cup opportunity. If the people in charge of the Ghana Football Association says they want you, why not go and take that World Cup experience, which of course will never happen to a lot of the coaches here. None of the coaches here, including Jan Reckett, our goalkeeper trainer, or even Florian Wrangler, and I said the Eden Terje, the head coach himself, will not get the opportunity of coaching at the World Cup. Fortunately, you have led your country to qualify. Why not lead them to the World Cup, get that CV, and then come back? So Dortmund, they're 99.9%, they are cocksure that Otto Addo is coming back to the team. And every person around the team, including sports journalists, knows that Otto Addo is going back. What I'm going to reveal now, or not even a revelation again, because he said it. Otto Addo told the Ghana FA that he does not see his future with the Black Stars. That is point blank. he does not see his future staying in Ghana. He doesn't see that he's going to be, as a national team coach, he has to be staying in Ghana. But he does not see himself staying in Ghana. So they have to compromise for him. He's saying this because at Dortmund, Otto's biggest ambition, from what I've heard, is that he wants to become the first black coach for Dortmund, or even better still in the German Bundesliga. And because of how highly rated he is there, he thinks that this is very attainable. So then, if I go and throw myself to Ghana FA and Black Stars and they sack me, I would never have my way back to Dortmund. So all along, Otto Addo's heart, body, mind and soul is at Dortmund. And today he has said it. Today he confirmed that he does not see his future here. His entire family think that Ghana is not the future for him. So he was a coach on temporal basis for the Black Stars. That's the fact. His mind, body, and soul have never been with the Black Stars. He has never stayed here to coach the team. So he had compromised for us. Some of you must understand. To you, nobody say, but there are so many coaches that Ghana can have. Why is it that they have come for you? He said his future is not here. His future is with Dortmund, where he thinks that he will become the first black coach, and he's on the line, and they respect him, and they give him so much reverence, they give him so much admiration. And when he comes to the Black Stars, he knows how coaches are sad. So he's weighed all these options, and now these are things that are very open. It's not say I feel a sports journalist speaker. These are things that are there. But his confirmation today that his entire family knows that he cannot be with Ghana. So he told the FA, said even if they had won the World Cup, even if he wins the World Cup, he, Otto Addo, will not continue with the Black Stars. So there are three things that I've mentioned. One, Otto Addo is coaching the Black Stars because he's compromising. We are playing to his game. Or no, na also own coach. And I say a pen and a oba. Until we have to play to his game. One, I will not stay in the country. Two, my future will not be there. Three, I don't need a long-term contract. Four, and whatever happens after the World Cup, I'm leaving. Five, I am working for Dortmund. Ghana is my part-time job. These are things that he had told the FA point blank. And these are things that every Ghanaian out this sports should know. So what he said today is emphasizing, and he's only going back to his promise that he won't continue with the Black Stars. Dortmund is where he sees his future. And now, this is the plot. Who becomes the next Black Stars coach? There is Chris Hilton in the team already, who a lot of people think has the requisite experience to manage the Black Stars. There is George Boateng, who deputized for Otto Addo and resigned from Aston Villa team. So, between the assistant coaches of Otto Addo and the technical advisor of the team, Chris Hilton, who takes charge of the Black Stars? Because Chris Hilton has already seen and known the team, he's been around the team. By now, even though he was not the head coach, I assume Sir Chris Hilton has come to know a lot about the culture dynamics of the team, the politics of the team. He's learned a lot. So automatically, you would think that the GFA will give the job to Chris Hilton. That's what a lot of people should think, rationally, logically. He's the best man. He was the best man based on CV and competence. But then the FA, who are the chief appointers, who are in charge of appointing, said they want Otto Addo. Then Chris Hilton compromised and stayed as the technical advisor. Now Otto is leaving back to his job in Dortmund. Who comes in? Is it Otto Addo's assistants, or the GFA will give the job to Chris Hilton? That is where the big thing is. I'm hearing a lot of things that the FA may prefer another coach. That's what I have heard. The FA may prefer another coach, even though Chris Hilton is there. But will Chris Hilton also accept the job? Well, he had also had interviews and said he would decide all this after the World Cup, but now he's just helping the Black Stars team to go for the World Cup because he thinks that this is his country and he needs to help us and he's home. So all that will play out well for him. So Otto Addo has gotten this on his CV. He's left. He had made it clear to the FA and officials that he is not going to coach the Black Stars on Tnaha and Kochi and Sema Oteti Bebre about Ghana football. Said the team epam coach anytime. The man or Dortmund. Ne family and are very influential in this decision. And today he mentioned it at the post-match press conference. Said the family. Imagine, say omo a one omo ti ofie na yere mo say ana na yere ne ne mba na ne family for say omo hu say obekwa akotena Ghana. They won't agree to him staying in Ghana. And in the family na ye influential in this decision. He's gone. Who comes in next? And what will the next coach do? Are there players that will be sacked or not be called again? Is there going to be somebody bold enough to take drastic decisions? Maybe Otto Addo did it, but Otto, to me, did his best. Qualified Ghana for the World Cup at a point or at a time where we had no chance of qualification. He qualified us, he won a game at the World Cup, he played some beautiful football, but inexperience caught out with him. Game management, approach, selection. I don't know what happened, but there are a lot of things that went wrong for Otto. There are some good things that went right for him. I think that he's learned his lessons. He's going back to Dortmund, where he thinks that he will become the head coach of Dortmund in 5 or 6 years. So Otto is basically like Obroni, or planning a life very well, or picking the choices very well. Obroni be anywhere obekwakoye obey options. Now obe choose baby a job security any. Obroni a onim ne sort. So Otto Addo is picking Dortmund ahead of Ghana, and he's always picked Dortmund ahead of Ghana. So he's gone. But who comes in? Chris Hilton or the GFA will prefer another, based on the fact that Chris Hilton had never been the choice of the GFA. Even when he was the more experienced coach, even when he had the capacity, experience, and expertise at that highest level, the GFA went in for Otto Addo. So now that Otto is going, will the GFA come back to Chris Hilton, or the GFA will try to bring in another person? This is the dynamics, and I don't know how it plays out, but these are the facts and reasons why Otto Addo was convinced for days to coach the Black Stars. I basically want to say he's done well, he's done his part. It didn't go out as planned at the World Cup, but these are things that he had already said he was going to do. Ghana now in search for a new coach. Let's see how it goes. We'll come your way again with another interesting bits of how this thing, Black Stars World Cup campaign turned out. Ochina, we have a very interesting point on accountability, and this is where I'll explain why Ghana needs to be serious.
All right, so that was Saddick Adam serving us with some information about Coach Otto Addo's resignation. So if you have any opinion about this particular issue, make sure you type that in the comment section. Let me see your comment on this particular situation, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new here, and click on the notification bell so that anytime I post any video, you will get it.